Next on Broadway Broadcasting's Fifth Row Center, spectacle versus story when tech takes over the stage. The lights are brighter, the tricks are smarter, but is the soul of the story getting lost in the special effects? Is it elevating the art or replacing the artist? It's our Broadway unscripted debate. Take your seat. The show's about to start.
Broadway Broadcasting presents Fifth Row Center, the secret to Broadway's best seats in the house. Roma Torre, three-time Emmy Award-winning journalist and acclaimed theater critic, returns to television to reprise her signature theater reviews and exclusive insights. Plus, she brings us inside the 2025-2026 live theater season. And we bring you into the conversation with our exclusive live interactive roundtable. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for details. Join Roma Torre in the best seat in the house. This is Fifth Row Center.
Stars shining bright above you.
Welcome to Hawkins. On Broadway and beyond, productions are using technology not as decoration, but as a structural part of the storytelling itself. Hi, I'm Roma Torre, and thanks for joining me on Fifth Row Center. Spectacle versus story. Projections, automation, sound design, and immersive environments are no longer accents. In some shows, they are the language of the piece. Consider Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, where illusions make the impossible feel real.
Hogwarts will be the making of you, Albus, I promise you.
Or Stranger Things, The First Shadow, where immersive visuals bring the upside down to life. But here's the counterpoint. While technology can dazzle, it doesn't always deepen the drama.
If only I could remain always young.
Last season's The Picture of Dorian Gray leaned heavily on innovation, raising questions about whether the spectacle enhanced the story or distracted from it.
I would give my soul for that.
And on the other side, in Death Becomes Her, a stunt performer executes a dangerous fall down a staircase night after night. Do audiences fully register the skill, training, and physical risk involved, or does the effect overshadow the human who's doing it? Technology can make theater more immersive, more entertaining, but does it sometimes compete with the raw physicality of live performance? Or does it open doors to storytelling we haven't yet imagined? In this episode, we explore how theater is evolving in the age of technology and the creative risks that come with it. Meanwhile, from high-tech spectacles to timeless classics. Shakespeare in the Park is back. After 2 summers away from its longtime Central Park home at the Delacorte Theater, the $85 million renovation includes new seats, a bolstered stage, and the same historic promise, free Shakespeare under the New York skyline. Their first production features a unique presentation of Romeo and Juliet, running May 22nd through June 28th. This time, the star-crossed lovers don't only cross family lines, they cross a language line. In the bold new staging, the world of the play unfolds in English, but Romeo and Juliet speak to one another in Spanish, turning their forbidden romance into an intimate language of their own. For the newly expanded free lottery, visit publictheater.org. Across the Atlantic, London is plotting its traditional summer of outdoor Shakespeare. 2 of the best-known venues are conjuring up the same fantasy. Shakespeare's Globe is staging a Midsummer Night's Dream through August 29th, while Regent's Park Open Air Theater presents its own Midsummer from June 20th through July 18th. Back in the U.S., The Outsiders National Tour.
When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only 2 things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home.
The 2024 Tony Award winner for Best Musical stops in Schenectady, Philadelphia, and Grand Rapids. Based on S.E. Hinton's novel and Francis Ford Coppola's iconic film, the musical carries Pony Boy, Johnny, and the Greasers far beyond Oklahoma and into a new national audience. Finally, the best theater not only entertains, it sends us back into the world differently. That's the idea behind Stage Left, the socially engaged new play festival returning for its second year, June 12th through the 14th at Theater Row, the off-Broadway theater complex on West 42nd Street. It's the brainchild of Working Theater, the 40-year-old New York company devoted to stories about working people, labor, class, and communities that are too often left outside the mainstream spotlight. This year's festival is presented in partnership with Broadway Advocacy Coalition, the Tony-honored organization. The productions will include new work from a slate of socially engaged playwrights, and each play is paired with a community or advocacy partner with post-show conversations designed to connect the issues on stage to public dialogue beyond the theater doors. For theater lovers, Stage Left is less a traditional festival than a call to action. And that is theater news for mid-May 2026. And ahead.
How far are you willing to go, Michael?
My review.
I wanna belong to someone.
Broadway, unscripted, the scoop for you in the fifth row seat. From every stage, what's trending and new. All in one live conversation with you.
Question: as Broadway production costs climb into the tens of millions of dollars, is the large-scale design, the spectacle, reshaping the way stories are told on stage? Consistently, since they opened, two of the biggest grossing shows on the boards in New York are Harry Potter and the Cursed Child and Stranger Things, The First Shadow. For the week that just closed, as we are reporting this, February 2026, the top 5 grossing shows are, and we'll take them in order, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Hamilton, The Lion King, Wicked, and Stranger Things, the First Shadow. Now, while it's true all those shows have a strong established fan base, the illusions are world building, and they are very immersive as well. Sometimes it's so seamless you can get lost in it, but sometimes it can be so dazzling it can take you out of the moment of the story, just because they can. Should they? So joining me now to talk about all of this are two people who examine that line each day. Ben Piercy, a design leader at 59 Productions, a studio known for integrating projection and visual storytelling into major Broadway and international productions, including Ragtime, that we're seeing this season, and Stranger Things, The First Shadow, and the Met Opera, Cavalier and Clay. It was pretty spectacular in its own right. Along with us is David Barber, the editor and chief of Lighting and Sound America, one of the leading trade publications covering the technical side of live entertainment. For decades, David's reporting on the innovations and trends in stagecraft, and he has reviewed productions through the lens of how design functions in storytelling. So, Ben, let's start with you. First of all, congratulations on the Tony Award that you won for Stranger Things. I know it was the whole set design crew, and that crew was immense for this production. It is a show that obviously had to rely heavily on special effects and stagecraft, quite a technical feat. But when you're given a budget, or when the show's budget is upwards of 30, I think it was about $40 million, who determines how that money is spent? And is there a temptation to splurge and go wild? Why don't you walk us through the creative process?
The work that we do, video design, is, I would say, a fairly small part of the overall cost of the production. It has a big impact, but it isn't as much as the scenery costs to build. But that said, we don't come at it from the beginning from how much are we going to spend on it. We come at it from how are we going to tell this story. And that was, frankly, the biggest challenge with something like First Shadow. First Shadow is written by Kate Trefree, who had never written for the stage before. And that's she had written parts of the series that's becoming more and more common. And so the scripts that we get, the writers that are writing those scripts are writing stories that sweep through locations. There's probably 30 scenes in Act 1 in for a shadow. The challenge for us is how to tell that story. Technology is certainly the tool that we use to tell that story, but it is just a tool. What we have to start with is actually how to tell it in the first place. And when you see in the script a battleship appears in an upside down world, to actually do that, you have to sort of craft it. And Kate early on said, I shouldn't write this. I don't know how to write anything for theater. But Stephen Daldry, who essentially came up with the idea of doing Stranger Things for the stage, Stephen said, don't worry about the theater part. We'll help you with that. You just write the story, and we'll figure out how to turn it into a play. And we did.
Ben, when Daldry says don't worry about the theater part, what does he mean by that?
He means Kate shouldn't worry about how to get the battleship on stage or how long that's going to take.
Technicals, right? Exactly.
So let your design team and Stephen figure out how to stage that. And we started with a workshop that my colleagues and I at 59 put together, which was just to show the kinds of theater magic that we could create. And so we put together all sorts of little vignettes of, and this was realized in physical form, sort of, this is what various projection techniques looked like. This is how you could manipulate a space. And so delivering that information to the fellow creatives is also a huge part of the process, because we're using new tools, we're using them in new ways. Stephen doesn't know how that works until he sees it. So we have to either figure out how to communicate what it's going to look like or show him what it's going to look like.
The topic of this particular segment is spectacle versus story, and there is a stark difference of opinion on exactly how that should work. And I would have to say there's a delicate balance. How much to dazzle the audience versus is it going to interfere with the story? Does it enhance the story or does it detract from them? And I was looking at all the reviews for Stranger Things, and I think without exception, the critics were very impressed with your work in particular, but they weren't so hot on the storytelling aspect. But interestingly, there was one reviewer that I'm actually going to quote this. Enough can't be said that this production doesn't change the game of Broadway. It smashes the game board and shoots it into a new dimension. And then I saw the Times review of the London production in which he wrote cheap thrills expensively made. David, I think you're more in that category when you reviewed Stranger Things. What's your opinion on all of this? And actually, I want to get your sense of, is it possible to have a perfect balance of spectacle and good storytelling?
Well, I didn't have any objection to the technology used in Stranger Things at all. I mean, if you're going to put Stranger Things on a stage, you'd better deliver. And because I'm a fan, I've been watching the show all along.
Yeah.
And so what I thought that was a little lacking in the production was that what really works in the show is the charm of that young cast and the older actors with them and those characters. And this show does kind of take you out of that. You are seeing some of those characters, but you're seeing them as teenagers. And then there's a lot of stuff going on that isn't directly connected to the plot of the show or the way that it appears on TV. So I thought a certain amount of the humor and charm of this series was missing. But it was still a riveting spectacle, and they really came at you, and you couldn't look away from the stage. So, and on that level, I thought it completely delivered.
So is it possible? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
That's okay. So it's interesting. I frequently describe what I do when I'm a video designer. The tools we use are very sharp knives, and we have to cut carefully. It is very easy for us to overwhelm what's happening on stage, and we work very hard to try not to do that. I'm always proudest of my work when people don't notice it or can't tell what was video or what was lighting or what was what was scenery. That's when I feel like we've succeeded. So we are not designing spectacle for spectacle's sake. Nobody sat in a room for Stranger Things thinking, how are we going to wow the audience with a particular effect? We were trying to tell a story.
Yeah.
And that story is frequently in a whole other world. and that's
Literally,
that's a challenge to present on a Broadway stage. That said, we're using theatrical tricks and magic that has been done for hundreds of years. We're using some new tools that didn't exist hundreds of years ago, but a lot of the tools we use did exist, have existed
That's
for a
very
very long
true.
time.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, we're just presenting them in a unique way to tell that story.
And there are aspects of the design that totally facilitate the storytelling. It is a huge, sprawling plot, and without that turntable constantly moving and delivering new characters and sets, it would take 5 hours to do that play. And the video, in particular, is excellent. A lot of video design is about transitions and making changes and transitions that you couldn't do any other way, and that's absolutely crucial to the need to pace that play and keep it moving at all costs.
I design time with light. That is how I describe what I do.
Ooh, very nice. That time with light is quite lovely. The New York Times review of the Broadway production called it a live spectacle event. I don't know if that was meant to be derogatory or whatever, but it's true when you have a show like Harry Potter, for one, and Stranger Things. The special effects are what people go for, essentially. Is Broadway becoming a theme park with all of these, fancy special effects shows, which the bulk of the critics aren't really loving? What do you think, David?
I think shows like Harry Potter and Stranger Things are kind of fabulous one-offs. And I really disagree with that critic who said this smashes the Broadway board and it's all going to change. I don't think that at all. I also think that for the last 70 years, people have been saying, oh, Broadway's too spectacular. It's too big. What about the human factor?
Right, the Disney vacation, remember that?
Right, exactly. I mean, if Broadway's becoming a theme park, it's becoming so because of, I think, changes that have happened in the audience post-COVID, and we're relying much more on a tourist audience than the kind of really seasoned theater-going tri-state audience that used to exist. And so there's a heavy reliance on IP properties because you've got to sell brand names. You either have to have a star or you have to have a title, The Great Gatsby, The Outsiders, Stranger Things. And that is the one thing that makes me a little worried because I like to see people doing new plays and new musicals and fresh ideas.
Originals, yeah.
Yes. But those could be
there's
small,
always
they could be
always
large.
been a Phantom of the Opera, and there's always been a show like Fun Home. You know what I mean? Like there's always been a choice between spectacle and something that's more intimate and more available. The interesting thing about the two that you quoted is that they're both plays, and that is new. The idea that you do a play like that on the scale of a musical, because Stranger Things is as big as any musical I've ever done. So that is different.
Yeah.
I get worried about groupthink though, because we all say it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way. I've just said you have to have a star, you have to have a property. Look at some of the biggest hits of the last couple of years. Stereophonic, a 3-hour and 15-minute play with no stars about the making of a pop album from 50 years ago, and it posted spectacular numbers. Look at Oh Mary, which is the kind of thing that I personally used to go see on Avenue C and 6th Street back in the 1980s with like Charles Bush or somebody like that. And now it's selling out in its second year to an all ages, very mixed audience. And what does that mean? No one knew who Cole Escola was before they landed on Broadway.
Yeah. You know what else comes to mind? Operation Mincemeat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's pure theater, in my estimation. Maybe there's two categories, or you have like the real theater but I had asked earlier, what's the balance? Are there any shows out there? And, one show that sort of comes to mind is Harry Potter. I think they balanced it pretty well with, the characters were pretty strongly developed. But at the same time, you had all those fancy special effects, which is what people go for.
I think that the hold of the Harry Potter books over the audience was sufficient enough that people were intrigued by the idea of what would happen when they were all in their 40s and had to face a whole new set of crises. Again, a lot of the technology in Harry Potter has been around since Shakespeare, practically, even though there was a lot of tremendous work done on it. I don't know. I think that in a way, Ragtime, which Ben worked on this year, is a brilliant example
Bravo.
of using I happen to be writing a feature story about it right now, so this is on my top of mind. But it's a show that's very big. It has a tremendous visual impact, but there's not a lot of scenery in it, and the projections are beautifully integrated into it.
Yeah.
As alluding to something that Ben said before, you can be looking at the stage at Ragtime and not really know what you're seeing, if it's scenery or if it's lighting or it's video. And again, this production was designed to make this 3-hour musical move fast, which it needs to do with its sprawling cast of characters and its many plots.
Yeah.
So I think it's an excellent example of a design that's large scale, but totally in the service of the material.
Right, perfectly integrated. Ben, you had said something about your aim is to make the visuals seamless so that people don't stop and say, oh, wow, look at that. But I will say that effect that you achieved, we just saw it with Casey Levy standing on that bare stage with that gorgeous overhang. Was that supposed to be clouds? Because I know it happened right during the beach scene, but that was just spectacular. How did you come up with that?
So this is so David Corrins did the set, and he created this sort of massive piece of fabric that unfurls itself and moves upstage. And yes, it is meant to represent clouds, but it's an abstract version, right? And so at one point and in fact, I think in the transition into it, we project some clouds across it. There's sort of a stormy moment that leads into it. But once it's in, it's an abstract mind space. It's the world of this character and what she's thinking. And that is where I could easily have projected very beautiful clouds on this, but this is instead a combination of some projection, some lighting, and the physical piece of scenery that's been created there to create this abstract effect. And that is where the work is most satisfying, when it's sort of, because we're all individual artists, and we each have our sort of disciplines and crafts, but we work together to create this magical moment, which I don't know of any other artistry or discipline that works that way, where it's just sort of the collective mind of the people in the room creating.
It's a great example of design being used, as it can be used in musical theater, to take you inside the character's mind.
Yeah, it was great. Talk about getting into a character's mind. I wanted to bring up another show, The Picture of Dorian Gray, last year, which also sharply split the critics.
If only I could remain always young, and the picture could grow old.
For those who are listening and don't know it very well, but it was an adaptation of an Oscar Wilde novel that was written in 1890, and it was considered a classic, but it turned into essentially a solo production with Sarah Snook playing something like 26 roles. And she was aided immeasurably by lots of visuals, video projections on various screens that popped up, and a camera crew that was following her all around. And I wanted to mention that a friend of ours, Michael Summers, who was writing his review, said it's the latest example of a dubious trend in the theater. Who wants to pay to see a Broadway show and then watch movies? What are your thoughts? Actually, Ben, I want to get your thought on that, first of all, because this is right up your alley. And
you start.
Watch a little what?
It's interesting. Like, so that, we have done a lot of work with live video, and where we would create an experience where actors were performing something on stage, and they were being filmed in that moment by other actors who were operating cameras. And we created this sort of live cut of that as a film that was projected above the stage. So as it was happening on stage, as you could see the actors performing their scenes, you saw the movie they were making. Or essentially a film version of the story above the stage. And that, I think that is an interesting way of applying live camera to the thing. I have no objection to telling a story in the way that they did it on Dorian and Gray, because I think, I think one of the problems we have in the theater is scale, right? We have an audience who's very used to seeing things on television, seeing the close-up of the actor or in a film. And in a theater, if you're sitting in the back row of the orchestra, that person is very small. And if you're telling a story that involves the way that character is being formed is in the detail of what they're doing in their face, in order to magnify that the audience can see it, that's a perfectly good way of doing that and telling that story. It is more like watching TV or seeing a film. It is still live in front of you, and it is still, I think, a really compelling way to tell the story. So I have no objection to.
All right, I didn't either, but David, I think you did.
I did, yes. I think that Sarah Snook is such a brilliant actress with a magnificent vocal instrument. And I don't need all that technology getting in between her and us. Because to me, I love projection design. It can be so useful in the theater. But the fundamental aspect of theater that makes it different from everything else is that actor-audience direct line of contact. And when that gets interfered with, I'm not happy at all. So.
Yeah,
I really didn't like Sunset Boulevard for the same reason.
That brings up West Side Story, the Ivo von Hove.
Right, he's the one who got it all started. Ivo von Hove.
Right,
he's the king of this.
Yeah, and that
network
that turned me off. I thought it was extremely distracting and overpowering the drama. But that's to each our own. By the way, Michael Summers also said something that really got my attention, and he said that the watching Dorian Gray, the event proved more exhausting than exhilarating to this. I think he said to this boomer taste or attention span or something like that. Is it a generational thing? Do you think? Is this? Are we just a bunch of curmudgeons here?
Yeah,
and
without
this is the new state of the art, and we're just going to have to live with it. Is that? It's going to keep Ben awfully busy. Tell us what's coming up, Ben.
I would be grateful for it. Well, we've just done a production of The Last Ship, which stars Sting and his friend Shaggy.
What have we got but the laying of a keel? What have we got? What have we got? What have we got?
It is currently playing in Paris at the Scène Musicale and will, in June, open on the Metropolitan Opera stage, which is very exciting for us. We've done quite a lot of work there, and it's very exciting to be bringing that story to New York.
We should remind our audience, this is not a new show. It was produced quite a few years ago on Broadway, and it was mixed results, right? I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
It always, it's interesting. It's a story that's very personal to Sting, and I think when he's in this production, when he is part of telling it, it's a really compelling story. I think we've sort of figured out how to tell this story in a really interesting way.
And
it has a gorgeous score.
Yeah, I did. I love the music, but the fact that you're involved is the technical aspects. Are there special effects?
So 59 designed the scenery and the video, which is exciting for us. This is what we want to be doing. It's a completely new scenic environment for the show, which places the ship front and center. Again, that thing about blurring the lines between what's real and what's. I think we've done that in a way on The Last Ship that is unique and exciting.
Well, bravo. I'm looking forward to it. And at the Met, no less. That's great.
I know.
Gentlemen, it's been a wonderful conversation. We could go a lot longer, but unfortunately, time is our enemy. Ben Piercy and David Barber, can't thank you enough. It was a wonderful conversation.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
In one live conversation with you.
Hit or miss, decide before you go. Roma's review, now you know.
I wanna belong to someone.
Turning a movie into a musical reeks of desperation. That line, uttered by a character in The Lost Boys, earns a good laugh, but it's also a shrewd meta-assessment of the current crop of film-to-stage adaptations occupying Broadway theater these days. The Lost Boys is among the latest, based on the 1987 horror comedy film starring Kiefer Sutherland as the leader of a band of young vampires terrorizing Santa Carla, a fictional seaside town in Southern California.
Home, it's like I'm finally home.
The musical hews closely to the film with some plot adjustments for the stage. The show's creative team also worked hard to preserve the film's mix of laughs and scares, and that's no easy feat. And while the production values are top-notch with an excellent cast, the storytelling doesn't always fly. But when it literally flies, it is sensational. Special mention to the aerial design team that created the flying effects. All of the technical elements under Michael Arden's direction deserve high praise. The rock-infused songs do a good job moving the story along while helping to shade the characters with added depth.
I remember how it used to be. Times were innocent and love was free.
Shoshana Bean, in yet another fine-tuned performance, lends her gorgeous pipes to the ballad Wild.
Give peace a chance.
The lead vampire, David, is played by Ali Lewis Borsgui. He possesses a natural charisma that is simply mesmerizing on the big stage. The show does not reek of desperation, after all. In fact, I think it's better than the film, even with its flaws. And while none of them are fatal, there are enough to keep the Lost Boys from achieving that one thing vampires and Broadway musicals desire more than anything else: eternal life. Join us for our next episode. Until next time, I'll see you, Fifth Row Center.